Hello everyone, this is Naren's Life with MS. I am Naren and it's time for Truthful Tuesday. And this Truthful Tuesday, I actually want to talk about something that, I just had this conversation, or not just, maybe well, before I came back to my room. And that was, now, but, um, yeah, so it was literally my father telling me that I don't talk about the fact that I don't walk very well. And I have mentioned my issues with walking, but this is just to make sure that my dad knows that I have talked about walking. I have definitely mentioned a lot of issues that go with walking, but I do want to talk a little something about how my feet function on a daily basis. So this goes to me doing yoga this evening, and it just so happened that today's yoga was more based on lower body strength. And one of the exercises we were doing concerned sideways walking, and you had to walk sideways normally, then sideways while pointing your feet out, and then sideways walking while pointing your feet in. And the third version actually scared me a little, because normally when I walk, one thing that does tend to happen is that my left leg especially tends to move inward. I have mentioned this before, so it tends to move inward and also along its edge rather than flat on the floor. And that happens to be the main reason why it actually hurts me uh, quite often if I'm doing, let's say, a child's pose while doing yoga, because my leg is not completely flat on the floor, and when I put my body's weight on it, my little toes do get crushed. But yeah, there was so much fear, especially in doing the sideways walking with my legs inward, because it almost felt, I almost had the fear that it would get stuck, like my leg would get stuck like that, because having my legs get stuck, or even experiencing something like um, something like spasticity is pretty common for me. And I know I was prescribed medication for it, and the medication has improved the spasticity, but there are still hints of spasticity that exist. And usually when I am experiencing spasticity, my left leg especially does turn inward. And so when I was doing the sideways walking with my leg turned inward, I actually felt a little intimidated, um, just to get out of that position. And but I would say that one of the funniest things that actually ended up happening was, out of the three versions of doing the sideways walking, I think the third one, where my legs were faced inwards, which tends to happen um, quite often, was probably the hardest one to actually hold. It was actually a certain stance that was probably the hardest to hold, just because my left leg almost wanted to move. Let's say if it's facing this way, it almost wanted to pretty much move this way, when I was moving to the side. And now there might be 100 reasons why it was doing that, but I also felt a little better knowing that, at least my leg wasn't getting stuck in, that position, folded inwards. um, because that was the main reason why I was having why I actually have problems walking on a regular basis. So at least knowing that while doing yoga, while moving sideways, at least my left leg was not willing to stay turned inward and wanted to actually face outward, did make me feel at least a little reassured that okay, my leg still understands that there are more positions for my ankle to be turned, right? And it's not always that it's turned inward that is happening. So that is pretty much covering a little truth that I wanted to talk about today, something that happened today, and definitely something, conversation that I had right before coming to this room, so that an hour later I could have this conversation with you. But of course, with that said, considering this is more of an MS related topic, definitely do want to interact with people who have MS, are caretakers of patients with MS. Um, what what is your approach if you do notice that one foot tends to turn inward while walking? Because the one thing that does end up happening is that it significantly reduces balance in that leg, and it also reduces the amount of power that that leg can actually have on the floor. And it definitely does also lead to that increase in spasticity also, right? Considering that there is a lot less power that you're putting on the floor when you're walking with your foot turned inward. So yes, please do share your thoughts, your insights, your experiences, so that we can get the conversation started. But with all of that said, this is Nareen's Life with MS. I am Nareen, and I do hope your Tuesday is going very well, that you are all excited that tomorrow is Wednesday, and after that, the weekend is just right around the corner. So with all of that said, here is me wishing you a good night, sweet dreams, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye.